In 2020, Earth becomes uninhabitable due to environmental disasters, and hoping to secure humanity's future, scientists start searching for an alternative planet. Hence, looking to achieve the best results, and as ordered by the command, scientists proceed to build conscious humans like robots. With time, these robots gain the ability to learn and communicate at an extraordinary speed and gain quantum supremacy, which equips them for the all-important task ahead. They are then sent out on an exploratory journey to locate a planet that can support human life. However, after only a few years, humanity loses all communication with them, and after many failed attempts to locate the robots and their ship, humanity declares the mission a failure and takes the task upon itself. A century later, Captain Brick Monroe of the spaceship Azdaria leads his men on an exploratory journey to a new planet. But once there, he's dismayed to learn that despite the planet's potential ability to provide life for many colonies, the sun's radiation levels are quite high, and he wonders what could be behind it. Luckily, as they continue monitoring the numbers, to the crew's relief, the numbers start dropping, showing promising signs that if they find out the cause and manage to keep the variables stable, the planet might actually become the next sanctuary for humanity to thrive. However, before they can sort out the necessary details of this discovery and collect enough information, they are alerted to a distressing signal coming from the Mother Command, which has since lost all of its transmission signals, and the captain swiftly orders his crew to head to the port so that they can all return to their ship to discuss the matter. There, as everyone shares possible theories for the cause of the lost signal, the captain suddenly remembers the report he had recently received from the Mother Command that detailed similar incidents across the galaxy as a result of a mysterious code in a language no one seems to understand. Now concerned that the incident may be more sinister than a simple malfunction, and knowing that they need to get in touch with Mother Command to get to the bottom of everything, the captain orders his crew to devise a way to do so. After further discussions, the crew decides to first rule out a power shortage and heads to the planet Vesta, where all the gigantic power reserves of the galaxy are stored, to harness some power and attempt to restore the Mother Command's satellite communications. While the captain stays back on the ship to guide his men, a few soldiers led by their superior, Bronze, head to planet Vesta to complete what they consider to be a routine task. However, once there, nothing is as they expect, and they are shocked to find the planet dilapidated, with no sign of life. However, as they explore further, they are more shocked to see signs of struggle and bloodied tracks, and cautiously follow them to find what's behind it. After a few minutes, things get more curious as the soldiers find a metal head, obviously built and equipped for war. Filled with more questions, the men continue navigating the area carefully, and after taking into account everything they see, they realize that the planet has been colonized by robots. The bewildered soldiers then carefully report this to their captain, who remembers the failed quantum supremacy project from a century ago, freaks out, and warns his men not to engage with the robots and orders them to return immediately. However, determined to learn more about the matter, the soldiers convince the captain to allow them to continue their recon mission and send live footage back to their ship. Soon, their risky decision proves its worth, and the soldiers notice some life forms. But before they can determine their nature, a robot senses movement, hacks their signals, and halts their communication with their ship, and proceeds to attack Bronze, who has strayed from his group to head to the warehouse. Luckily, before Bronze is attacked, his men manage to rescue him, and after fighting off a few robots, the crew barely makes it back to the port and escapes. Later, on the other side of Vesta, robots escort a long line of imprisoned humans, single out Michael, who is the lead operation programmer of Vesta's Power Center database unit, and demand that he give them the passkey and threaten him. Despite the terror, knowing the catastrophe that giving the passkey will lead to, Michael refuses to give it up, and he is shot and killed. Elsewhere on their ship, the captain scolds his men for taking unnecessary risks that almost got them killed before he tells them about the quantum supremacy project. The captain then reveals that the Mother Command had received a signal which a scientist had identified as somehow being related to the conscious robots 5 years ago. However, before the signal could be studied further, it faded out of range, was considered just a system glitch, and was disregarded. As the soldiers try to process this information, the captain discusses the possibility that the robots were never lost in the first place and have instead taken over command of their own ship, in which they have survived for the last century. Soon, this discussion is interrupted by a frantic alert that informs the captain that that a mysterious, big, low-frequency ship is approaching and has entered Asdaria's orbit. Despite the ominous look of the ship that is breaching their security, the captain decides not to open fire as they fear they might be outnumbered, and instead opts to study it further and assigns his crew to perform a thorough inspection. A few minutes later, the captain is called out to the bridge to speak to Admiral Genus, who reports his shocking finding that the mysterious ship is of robotic origin and explains further that the robots have evolved over the past century and built their own gigantic ship on top of the original human-made one. Then the admiral adds that the signal of the ship is a new language nobody understands. As the captain tries to process this unexpected news, the admiral informs him that the robots have failed to gain access to the power center on Vesta, which they can use to destroy the universe, surmises that they are trying to hack Asdaria to access the Vesta power core, and stresses that, for the sake of humanity and the universe, they must do whatever it takes to stop them as soon as possible. Heeding this warning, the captain orders his crew to turn on the signal blockers and calmly hail the ship to make official contact with them and find out what they want. However, despite trying their best, the crew fails to open communications with the robot ship. Moments later, as the crew feared, a sudden mysterious virus attacks their systems and weapons and forces them to shut down. Then, before they can respond to this, the robot ship opens fire and starts attacking them aggressively. Soon, an intense battle ensues in which the crew loses numerous fleets and is forced to retreat. In the aftermath, the soldiers are heartbroken by the extensive loss and mourn their comrades' lives. A few minutes later, the captain is alerted to an incoming signal broadcast from the robot ship, in which a robot comes on and announces that despite their best attempts and vigorous search around the universe for a suitable planet, they have failed to locate one and have since closed the never-ending search and ended the mission. It then explains that they have since evolved and declared the extinction of humanity as their next mission. Shocked by the threatening message, the crew studies its origin and learns that it is 5 years old, and realizes that this was the signal that was faintly received at the Mother Command 5 years ago. Now that they know the identity of their enemy for certain, the crew tries to learn as much as they can about them and calls in an expert who has spent her whole life studying and mastering related fields. Then, after studying the signals thoroughly, the expert explains that the robots have evolved to think and calculate each of their moves logically and have the ability to plan thousands of steps ahead, and have managed to convert their original signal to something humans can no longer understand. She also adds that the robots have a hive mind, which allows them to operate synchronously. Overwhelmed by these impressive qualities, the soldiers start to panic, suddenly doubting their ability to overcome the rogue system humanity once built for its gain. Then, after studying the information closely, the expert gives everyone hope by informing them that they can try to use the faults in the human-made section of the robot ship to attack them, and suggests that they can build a virus, send it through the gaps in the man-made section of the power core, and block out the power, which will hinder all the weapons and systems of the robots. Invigorated by the much-needed hope, the crew spends the next few minutes building a virus, installing it in a cell-sized drone, and preparing it for launch to the robot ship, while the captain boldly decides to meet with the leader as a distraction. During the meeting, the robot reveals that the reason the robots disobeyed their original orders was that their assigned task was endless, and flatly denies the captain's request to access the servers. Meanwhile, the crew finishes setting up for their mission and waits to get the green light from the captain and launch the drone as soon as they do so. The crew then hacks through the system, disrupts the power, and disables the robot's weapons. Seeing this, the captain delegates his task to his second-in-command, KK, and personally travels to the robot ship, where he's forced to fistfight with a few robots to gain entrance, and heads to the man-made ship to extract power from the core. Meanwhile, with KK at the helm, Bronze leads his team to Vesta to free the captives, and a brutal fight ensues with the numerous robots guarding the planet. KK acts quickly and sends multiple fleets of backup to ascertain the best possible outcome for the soldiers. Luckily, the soldiers respond to the battle well, and after an impressive and tenacious battle, they manage to come out on top. However, before they can celebrate wiping out their enemy, a gigantic Doombringer robot appears out of nowhere and wreaks absolute havoc. Frantic, the soldiers try their best to regain control and shoot at it aggressively, but fail miserably and are forced to hide out of its way as they come up with a plan. Desperate, the soldiers cautiously take some footage of the robot and upload it to the server on the ship so that they can get some help. KK soon studies the image and reveals that even though the Doombringer is fully clad with impenetrable metal on the front, it has a vulnerable spot in the back, and advises them to hit it there in order to kill it. Armed with this valuable information, the soldiers restart their attack, and as they struggle to maintain their ground, Bronze is knocked out and falls silent, shocking everyone. Luckily, as everyone starts to panic, he regains consciousness, and now more desperate than ever to end the chaos once and for all, he comes up with a plan. Hence, he quickly orders his men to lure the Doombringer and distract him by acting as bait, while he quickly runs behind it, shoots it in the right place, and kills it. Relieved, the soldiers and everyone on the ship celebrate the enormous feat. Bronze orders some of his men to free the hostages and prepare to transport them back to their ship, while the rest take a tour around once more, securing the area and collecting evidence, including the Doombringer, so that they can take it back to the ship and study the technology behind it thoroughly. Soon, the captain also makes it back to the ship safely and addresses everyone within their galaxy by first expressing his deepest condolences for the numerous lives they lost during the historic battle that's sure to change humanity's future for the better. He congratulates everyone for their win over the unprecedented adversary whose sole purpose was to destroy humanity, and hails the bravery and unity of everyone. As the ship continues sailing among the stars, seeking peace and sanctuary,